I picked out this story just for you. Let's listen to it.
Chapter 1. The Hidden Comet Bunker. The comet designated KX-77 drifted through the outer rim of Aethera's system, a jagged spindle of ice and rock tumbling through the void. To any passing scanner, it was worthless debris. But buried 300 meters beneath its frozen crust, the hidden comet bunker pulsed with illicit life. Imperial Starship Commander Adrien Voss stood before the tactical display, his reflection ghosted across the holographic star chart. The bunker's emergency lighting cast everything in amber. Around him, the cramped operations center hummed with the quiet desperation of people who knew they'd stayed too long. Commander. Lieutenant Korn approached with a datapad clutched like a weapon. The supply manifest from the last drop. We're running low on atmospheric scrubbers. 3 weeks, maybe 4, before the air turns sour. Voss took the pad without looking at it. And the communication relay? Still nothing. The interference from the nebula hasn't cleared. We're blind out here. 6 months. 6 months since the Imperial Coalition's 7th Fleet had collapsed at the Battle of Radama. 6 months since Voss had led the survivors to this forgotten bolt hole, a black site cache known only to a handful of senior officers. They'd come here expecting rescue within weeks. The rescue never came. Now 47 loyal Imperial personnel huddled in the bunker's cramped corridors, rationing power and hope in equal measure. Voss had kept them together through sheer force of will. He was a commander without a ship, an officer without orders, a man clinging to hierarchy because the alternative was oblivion. "Get some rest, Lieutenant," Voss said. "I'll review the manifest in my quarters." Corin hesitated. "Sir, the crew, they're asking questions. About what happens next. About whether anyone's even looking for us. Tell them the Empire doesn't abandon its own." The words tasted like ash. Dismissed. Alone in the operations center, Voss allowed himself a moment of exhaustion. He pressed his palms against the cold metal of the tactical table. At 53, he'd survived 3 wars, 2 assassination attempts, and the political purges that had claimed half his graduating class from the academy. He'd expected to die in the command chair of a starship, not slowly asphyxiate in a hole carved from cosmic ice. The door chimed. "Enter." It was Sergeant Cade, the enhanced soldier assigned to Voss's personal detail. The man's augmented physiology made him broader than any natural human, his skeleton reinforced with carbon lattices, his muscles woven with synthetic fibers. The Coalition had spent a fortune building him. Now he stood in a frozen bunker, his combat potential wasted on guard duty. "Commander." Cade's voice carried the flat effect common to the enhanced. "We have a situation in the cargo bay. I thought you should see it personally." Voss followed him through the bunker's narrow passages. The walls sweated frost despite the environmental system's best efforts. Crew members pressed themselves aside as the commander passed, their faces tight with hunger and worry. The cargo bay occupied the bunker's lowest level, a cavernous space carved from the comet's core. Crates of emergency supplies lined the walls. And in the center, illuminated by portable work lights, stood something that shouldn't exist. A figure crouched amid a nest of cables and salvaged electronics. Robes of iridescent fabric shifted colors as the figure moved, and cybernetic implants glittered along the exposed skin of their arms and neck. The air around them shimmered with barely contained energy. A Techno-Shaman of the Ascendant cult. Voss's hand went to his sidearm. "How did this get past our sensors?" "Unknown, sir." Cade positioned himself between the commander and the intruder. "They appeared approximately 2 hours ago. No ship detected. No breach in the hull." The Techno-Shaman rose to their full height, taller than Voss had expected. Their face was a canvas of ritual scarification and embedded circuitry, eyes that glowed with the soft phosphorescence of active neural implants. "Commander Adrien Voss." The voice resonated with harmonic undertones, as if multiple people spoke in perfect unison. "The stars have whispered your name across the void. I am Zethkara of the Ascendant Path. I come bearing prophecy." "I don't deal in prophecies." Voss drew his weapon. "I deal in facts, Fact 1. This bunker is a classified Imperial facility. Fact 2. You're trespassing. Fact 3. I have 40 loyal soldiers and a very limited supply of patience. Zethkara smiled, teeth filed to points and inlaid with silver. Your soldiers.
Yes.
But are they all loyal, Commander? The void sees much that mortals miss. What does that mean? It means, said a new voice from the shadows, that your little empire is about to get smaller. Voss spun. A figure emerged from behind a stack of crates, slight, unassuming, dressed in the nondescript clothing of a civilian technician. But the data port implanted at their temple marked them as something far more dangerous. A data slicer. Syndicate Collective. And beside them stood 3 members of Voss's own crew, weapons drawn. Chapter 2. The Fault Lines. Drop your weapons. Voss kept his sidearm leveled at the data slicer. That's a direct order. See, that's your problem, Commander. The slicer stepped forward, and Voss recognized him now. Rix, a communications specialist who joined the bunker's population 3 months ago, one of the survivors from another destroyed vessel. You still think rank means something out here, but the Empire's gone. The fleet's scattered, and nobody's coming to save you. Cade moved with explosive speed, putting himself between Voss and the mutineers. His augmented muscles coiled beneath his uniform. Stand down, he growled, or I will put you down. Cade. Zethkara's voice cut through the tension like a blade. Sergeant Cade, Enhanced Soldier, serial number 747, K, Alpha. The Coalition spent 11 million credits building you. They programmed you to follow orders. But ask yourself, whose orders? The commander of a dead fleet? Or the voices of the cosmos that sing in your augmented blood? The Enhanced Soldier hesitated. It was only a fraction of a second, but Voss saw it. Don't listen to them, Voss said. They're enemy combatants. This is a mutiny. Mutiny implies we were ever yours to command. Rick circled to the left, positioning himself near the cargo bay's environmental controls. I've been Syndicate since before the war. When our ship went down, I saw an opportunity. 47 Imperial personnel, cut off from command, sitting on a black site cache of weapons and supplies. Do you know what that's worth on the black market? You're a spy. I'm an entrepreneur. There's a difference. Rix tapped the data port at his temple. I've been sending encrypted bursts through the nebula interference for months. My people are coming. A Syndicate extraction team. They'll take everything, weapons, supplies, the bunker itself. And they'll sell the survivors to the highest bidder. The Ascendant cult has already expressed interest in your Enhanced Soldier here. Zethkara nodded slowly. The machine flesh ones are prized by the cult. We have uses for them. Voss's mind raced. 3 mutineers in front of him, plus the Slicer and the Techno-Shaman. Unknown how many others throughout the bunker had been turned. He needed time. Lieutenant Corin, he said into his comms unit. Security alert, cargo bay. All available personnel. Rix laughed. Corin's with us, Commander. So are 6 others. That's 9 loyal Imperials left in this whole facility. The rest have seen the writing on the wall. The cargo bay doors remained sealed. You've taken the communications array, Voss realized. That's how you're coordinating this. Smart. Rix pulled a small device from his pocket. And I've taken something else. This bunker's atmosphere is controlled by a central processor. I've been uploading a little present into the system. In about 30 minutes, the scrubbers will start feeding carbon monoxide into the air supply. Slow. Painless. Everyone who hasn't been given the antidote will just drift off. You'd kill your own people? They're not my people. They're yours. Rick smiled. But here's the deal. Surrender peacefully. Hand over the codes to the weapons cache. And I'll let you and your loyalists take a shuttle. 1 shuttle, limited range, but enough to reach the trade lanes. You might even survive. Voss looked at Cade. The Enhanced Soldier's face remained impassive, but his eyes betrayed the conflict within. The Techno-Shaman's words had planted a seed of doubt. And if I refuse? Then everyone dies. Including you. Rix checked a chronometer. 28 minutes. The cargo bay fell silent. Somewhere in the distance, a pipe groaned under pressure. Frost crept along the walls like slow fingers. Commander. Zethkara's voice dropped to a whisper that somehow carried across the room. I did not come here for the Syndicate schemes. The cult has no interest in your supplies or your soldiers. I came because the Void showed me a vision. A fork in the path of destiny. One road leads to your death, and the death of all you've built. The other. The Techno-Shaman's eyes flared brighter. The other leads to revelation. Voss made his decision.
Cade.
On my signal. The enhanced soldier didn't respond, but he shifted his weight to the balls of his feet, ready to spring. Voss raised his weapon and fired at the lights. Chapter 3. Blood and Circuits. Darkness swallowed the cargo bay. Emergency lighting flickered on a moment later, but that moment was all Voss needed. He dove behind a stack of crates as gunfire erupted. Muzzle flashes strobed through the gloom. Cade moved like a force of nature, his augmented body shrugging off a graze to his shoulder as he closed with the nearest mutineer. The man screamed once before Cade's fist connected with his jaw, the impact audible even over the gunfire. Voss crawled through the maze of supplies, trying to reach Rix. The data slicer was the key. Kill him, and the countdown stopped. Or at least that was the hope. You can't hide from me, Commander. Rix's voice echoed through the cargo bay, distorted by the acoustics. I've got eyes everywhere. The bunker's security cameras. Of course. Rix had access to everything. Voss pressed himself against a crate and risked a glance. He spotted 2 mutineers taking cover near the environmental controls. A third lay motionless on the ground. Cade's work. The Techno-Shaman stood apart from the fighting, arms raised, lips moving in what might have been prayer or incantation. Commander Voss. Zethkara's voice seemed to come from everywhere at once. The Void offers you a choice. Embrace the chaos, or be consumed by it. Not now, Voss muttered. He checked his weapon's charge. Half depleted. A burst of gunfire chewed into the crate beside his head. He rolled, came up firing, and caught one of the mutineers in the chest. The man went down hard. 16 minutes, Rix called out. That's all you have left. My people are already moving through the bunker. Your loyalists are being rounded up as we speak. Voss didn't respond. He needed to think. The data slicer was somewhere in this room. But where? The cargo bay was a labyrinth of supplies and machinery. Rix could be anywhere. Unless. Voss pulled a small device from his belt, a portable scanner, standard issue for officers in the field. He'd used it 100 times to detect hull breaches, power fluctuations, life signs. Now he set it to search for the unique electromagnetic signature of an active data port. The scanner hummed. A direction. 30 meters.
20.
15.
There.
Voss moved through the darkness, using the scanner's readout to guide him. He circled around a stack of oxygen tanks, past a row of emergency shelters, and found himself behind the environmental control station. Rix stood with his back to Voss, fingers flying across a portable terminal. The countdown timer glowed in the air above the console. 14 minutes, 23 seconds. End it, Voss said, pressing his weapon to the back of Rix's skull. Stop the countdown. The data slicer froze. Then, slowly, he raised his hands. You know I can't do that, Commander. The program's locked. Only I know the override code. And if you kill me, it runs automatically. Rix's voice was calm, almost conversational. We're at an impasse. Give me the code. And watch you space me the first chance you get? I don't think so. Voss tightened his finger on the trigger. I've killed better men than you for less. Probably. But you're not a murderer, Voss. You're a soldier. An officer. You follow rules, protocols, chains of command. Men like you always hesitate. It's why the Empire fell. The Coalition couldn't adapt. Couldn't become what it needed to survive. And what's that? Ruthless. Rix turned his head slightly, just enough to see Voss from the corner of his eye. The Syndicate doesn't have that problem. We do what's necessary. We survive. Survival without honor isn't survival. It's just existing. Tell that to the dead. Movement in Voss's peripheral vision. One of the remaining mutineers, circling around. Voss had seconds. He made his choice. Voss swung his weapon toward the mutineer and fired twice. The man dropped. But in that moment, Rix moved, faster than Voss had expected, the slicer's hand closing around a hidden pistol. The shot took Voss in the shoulder. He staggered, his weapon clattering to the ground. See. Rix stood over him, pistol aimed at Voss's face. Hesitation. It's always hesitation. Commander. Cade's roar echoed through the cargo bay. The enhanced soldier burst from the darkness, blood streaming from a dozen wounds, but still moving. He collided with Rix like a meteor, driving the slicer into the environmental console. Sparks erupted. The terminal flickered. The countdown timer stuttered. And then it stopped. System override, announced the bunker's AI voice. Atmospheric purge cancelled. Life support returning to normal parameters. Rix lay motionless beneath Cade's bulk. The enhanced soldier rose slowly, his breathing labored but steady. He looked down at the slicer's body. Neck snapped, Cade reported. He's dead. Voss pressed his hand against his wounded shoulder, blood seeping between his fingers. The others? Neutralized. But the Techno-Shaman. A slow clap echoed through the cargo bay. Zethkara emerged from the shadows, robe swirling, eyes bright with something that might have been amusement or reverence. Well done, Commander. The Void chose wisely. The Techno-Shaman approached Voss, producing a small vial of iridescent liquid. For your wound. A gift from the cult. Voss didn't take it. Why are you really here? I told you. Prophecy. The stars showed me a commander at a crossroads. A soldier questioning his purpose. A bunker full of lost souls. And I saw that if you survived this night, you would become something unexpected. Define unexpected. Zethkara smiled. The Syndicate extraction team is still coming. Perhaps 6 hours away. You have that long to decide, Commander. Stay here and die. Flee and survive as a refugee. Or, let me show you what the Ascendant cult truly seeks. There is something buried beneath this bunker. Something older than the Empire. Older than the Coalition itself. The Comet is not what it seems. Voss looked at Cade. The enhanced soldier shrugged, a surprisingly human gesture. What's buried here? Voss asked. Zethkara's eyes flared.
A door.
And beyond it, the answer to a question your species has asked since first it looked up at the stars. Chapter 4. Transit to the Moon. The shuttle broke through the comet's surface, engines screaming as it clawed its way out of the gravity well. Behind them, the hidden comet bunker receded into the darkness, its location now compromised, its secrets exposed. Voss sat in the pilot's seat, his wounded shoulder wrapped in the Techno-Shaman's strange medicine. The bleeding had stopped within minutes. Now only a dull ache remained. You're sure about this? Cade occupied the co-pilot's position, his augmented body folded into the cramped space. We're trusting a cult fanatic based on a vision. We're not trusting anyone. Voss adjusted their heading. We're following a lead. There's something in that bunker worth investigating. But first, we need resources. Manpower. Weapons. The bustling moon base. The largest settlement in the sector, a chaotic sprawl of commerce and corruption orbiting the gas giant Thera's prime. Officially neutral territory. Unofficially, a haven for smugglers, mercenaries, and anyone else looking to disappear. Rix mentioned his extraction team was incoming. That means the Syndicate knows about the bunker. We can't go back until we're ready to hold it. Voss studied the navigation display. On the moon base, we can recruit. Arm ourselves. Find out what the cult is really after. And if Zethkara is playing us, then we'll deal with that too. The Techno-Shaman sat in the shuttle's cargo area, meditating. Voss still wasn't sure what to make of Zethkara. The cult was known for fanaticism, genetic manipulation, and terrifying psionic abilities. But the shaman had helped them, or at least hadn't hindered them. And the medicine worked. 6 hours to the moon base. 6 hours to figure out what came next. Voss leaned back in his seat and closed his eyes. For the first time in months, he had a direction. A purpose beyond mere survival. The question was whether it would get him killed. The bustling moon base materialized through the viewport like a fever dream made real. Neon signs blazed in a dozen languages, advertising everything from legitimate trade to pleasures that would make a veteran blush. Ships of every design docked and departed in a constant dance of commerce. The station's population numbered in the hundreds of thousands, a lawless city floating in the void. Docking Bay 17, Cade reported. It's on the lower levels. Less security, fewer questions. Perfect. The shuttle settled into its berth with a gentle thud. Voss gathered his few possessions, a sidearm, a knife, the portable scanner, and a small pouch of credits salvaged from the bunker's emergency stores. Not much, but enough to start. Zethkara joined them at the airlock. The Techno-Shaman had changed into more subdued clothing, a simple cloak that covered most of their cybernetic implants. In the station's chaotic crowds, they might pass for just another eccentric traveler. I will seek out my own contacts, Zethkara announced. There are those in this place who serve the Ascendant Path. We will meet again when the time is right. And when is that? When the stars align. The Techno-Shaman smiled enigmatically. You will know. Before Voss could respond, Zethkara disappeared into the flow of passengers streaming past the docking bay. Within seconds, the Techno-Shaman was gone. I hate riddles, Voss muttered. Agreed. Cade checked his weapon one final time. So, what's the plan? We find a bar. We find information. We find out who's hiring and who's selling. Voss started walking. And we stay alive long enough to figure out what's really buried under that comet. The moon base swallowed them whole. Chapter 5. The Informant. The establishment called itself the Void's Edge, a cantina carved into the station's outer hull with a massive viewport overlooking the gas giant below. Voss chose it for the sightlines, every entrance visible from the bar, every corner illuminated by flickering holoscreens broadcasting pit fights from across the sector. He sat at a corner table, nursing a drink that tasted like engine coolant and watching the crowd. Cade had taken position near the main entrance, pretending to study a weapons catalog on a nearby terminal. The enhanced soldier's augmented senses would catch any threat before it materialized. 3 days on the moon base. 3 days of asking careful questions, spreading credits like breadcrumbs, waiting for someone to take the bait. Tonight, someone finally had. You're the one asking about pre-Empire artifacts. The speaker slid into the seat across from Voss without invitation. A woman, middle-aged, with the calloused hands and weathered face of someone who'd spent decades working in vacuum. Her jacket bore the faded insignia of a mining consortium. I might be, Voss said carefully. Depends on who's asking. Call me Ven. I was a prospector for 30 years before the corporate wars killed the industry. Now I sell information to whoever's buying. She leaned forward. Word is you're looking for something old. Something buried. Something the cult is interested in. Voss's pulse quickened, but his face remained neutral. What else is word saying? That you're an ex-Imperial commander. That you've got an enhanced soldier watching the door. That you've got credits to spend and enemies on your tail. Ven smiled thinly. The Syndicate put out a contract on you, by the way. 50,000 credits for information on your location. Twice that for your head. Good thing I'm not on the market. Everyone's on the market, Commander. The question is price. Ven's smile widened. Fair enough. Let's talk about what you're actually after. She produced a datapad from her jacket and slid it across the table. The screen displayed a star chart Voss didn't recognize. Constellations shifted, coordinates marked in a notation system that predated the Imperial Coalition by centuries. The comet you were hiding in? KX-77. It's not a natural formation. Ven tapped the screen. Geological surveys from the early expansion era show it was dragged into its current orbit. Someone moved it there. Someone wanted it hidden. Who? That's the interesting part. Ven lowered her voice. The Ascendant cult isn't the first group to take an interest in that rock. Before them, there were the Progenitors. Voss had heard the term in whispered rumors. The Progenitors were a legend, a supposedly extinct species that had seeded life across the galaxy millions of years before any recorded civilization. Most scholars dismiss them as myth. You're saying the Progenitors built something inside that comet. I'm saying the cult believes they did. And the cult has been searching for progenitor sites for 300 years. Ven leaned back. Your Techno-Shaman friend didn't find you by accident. They tracked you there. Voss absorbed this. Zethkara had claimed prophecy, but the truth was more pragmatic. The cult had been hunting for the comet all along. What's inside? Don't know. But I know someone who might. Ven named a price. It was steep, most of Voss's remaining credits. He paid without hesitation. There's a man named Oralthes. Runs an antiquities shop on level 42, near the water reclamation plant. He was a xenoarchaeologist before the Empire banned his research. Spent 40 years studying progenitor sites before they went dark. Ven stood. Tell him Ven sent you. And Commander? Yes. The Syndicate isn't your only problem. The cult has agents on this station too. If Zethkara found you, others will follow. She disappeared into the crowd before Voss could respond. Cade fell into step beside Voss as he left the cantina. I heard most of it. Enhanced hearing. Useful. What do you think? I think we're walking into something bigger than a bunker dispute. Cade's augmented eyes scanned the corridor ahead. Progenitors. The cult.
Syndicate contracts.
None of this is coincidence.
No.
It isn't. Voss quickened his pace. We need to find this Oralthes before someone finds us. Level 42 occupied the station's bowels, a maze of pipes and recycling machinery that processed the moon base's waste into breathable air and drinkable water. The air hung thick with humidity and the faint chemical tang of purification systems. Few people came here voluntarily. Oralthes's shop occupied a converted maintenance bay between a water treatment node and a power junction. The sign above the door read Thes Exotic Imports in faded lettering. The windows were dark. Voss knocked. Nothing. He tried again. Still nothing. Doors not locked, Cade observed, his hand drifting to his weapon. Voss pushed the door open. The shop's interior was chaos. Shelves crammed with artifacts, display cases filled with objects that defied easy categorization, and in the center of it all, a body sprawled across the floor. Oralthes had been dead for hours. His throat had been cut with surgical precision, and his eyes stared at the ceiling in permanent surprise. Syndicate? Cade asked, already scanning the room for threats. Maybe. Or cult. Voss crouched beside the body, careful not to disturb the scene. Someone wanted him silenced before we could talk to him. A noise from the back room. Voss raised his weapon. Come out.
Now. Silence.
Then, slowly, a figure emerged from the shadows behind a collapsed shelf. A young woman, barely out of adolescence, with dark skin cropped short and eyes that held too much fear for someone so young. Please. Her voice cracked. I didn't see anything. I just work here. I clean the displays, organize the inventory. Please don't kill me. Voss lowered his weapon slightly. What's your name?
Talia.
Talia Vex. She pressed herself against the wall. They killed him. 3 of them. Robes like monks but with machines in their faces. They asked about the comet about the door. Oral told them he didn't know anything, but they didn't believe him. The cult. They'd beaten Voss to the information. What did they want specifically? The coordinates. Oral had been researching progenitor sites for decades. He'd found something, a map, I think. Partial coordinates to a dozen locations. They took it. Talia swallowed hard. But they missed something. Voss waited. Oral kept a backup.
Hidden.
He was paranoid about losing his life's work. She pointed to a shelf lined with seemingly worthless rocks. 3rd from the left. The gray one with the red vein. Voss retrieved the stone. It was heavier than it looked, and when he turned it, a seam appeared along its surface. Inside, a data crystal glittered. The coordinates they took were incomplete, Talia explained. This has the rest. Oral said it was the most important thing he'd ever discovered. A complete map to every progenitor site in the galaxy. And the comet? It's one of them. The first one Oral identified. He said whatever's inside would change everything. Voss pocketed the crystal. Thank you, Talia. You should leave the station. The people who did this might come back. I have nowhere to go. Cade spoke for the first time. Come with us. We could use someone who knows progenitor lore. The girl hesitated, then nodded. Okay, yes. Anything's better than staying here. They left the shop as quietly as they'd entered. Behind them, Oral Thessa's body cooled in the darkness, another casualty in a war that had been raging long before Voss knew it existed. Chapter 6. The Final Stand. The shuttle touched down on the comet's surface 12 hours later. Voss had spent the return journey studying the data crystal, parsing Oral Thessa's notes, trying to understand what they were walking into. The progenitors had been real. They had built structures across the galaxy, hidden, protected, designed to survive millions of years. And inside each one, they had left something behind. Knowledge, technology, weapons. The crystal didn't specify what, but it made one thing clear. The comet was a gateway. The first of 12. Movement on the surface. Cade reported from the sensors. 3 ships. Syndicate configuration. The extraction team Rix had summoned. They'd arrived before Voss could return with reinforcements. How many? Reading approximately 40 life signs. They've established a perimeter around the bunker entrance. Voss had known this was coming. He'd hoped for more time, but hope was a luxury he couldn't afford. He had Cade, Talia, and whatever element of surprise remained. Zethkara, Voss said. Any insights from the void? The Techno-Shaman had rejoined them at the moon base, appearing at the shuttle dock as if summoned by the conversation itself. Now Zethkara stood at the viewport, robes swirling in the recycled air. The door requires a key. A living key. Someone with the right resonance. Those glowing eyes fixed on Voss. You, Commander. The void showed me you at the threshold. You are the one who opens it. Me specifically? Your bloodline. You carry progenitor heritage. Distant, diluted, but present. It is why you survived the battle that destroyed your fleet. It is why you found this comet. Destiny is not random, Commander. It is written in the stars. Voss didn't believe in destiny. He believed in preparation, tactics, and the cold calculus of survival. But he couldn't deny the strangeness of his journey, the coincidences that had led him here, the feeling that something larger than chance was guiding his path.
Fine.
I'll open the door. But first we need to get past 40 Syndicate soldiers. Actually, Talia spoke up from her seat. I might be able to help with that. The plan was desperate. Voss despised desperate plans. But with no reinforcements and no alternative, desperation was all he had. Talia had studied Oral's notes extensively. Among the progenitor sites, the comet was unique. It contained a defensive system. Automated, dormant, but potentially functional. If Voss could access the bunker's secondary entrance, Talia believed she could activate the system using the data crystal. It's risky, she admitted. The system might not work. Or it might work too well and kill everyone on the comet, including us. Understood. Voss checked his weapon one final time. Cade, you're with Talia. Get her to the control room. Zethkara, provide whatever support you can. And you, Commander? I'm going to draw their attention. The Syndicate soldiers had set up a defensive line around the bunker's main entrance, a semicircle of portable barriers and automated turrets. Their ships sat parked nearby, engines idling, ready for rapid departure. Voss approached from the opposite side of the crater, walking openly across the ice.
He wanted them to see him.
Commander Voss. The voice boomed across the surface, amplified by a suit speaker. Surrender now and we'll make it quick. Fight and we'll take our time. Voss stopped 50 meters from the perimeter. I have a counteroffer. Leave now, and I'll let you live. Laughter rippled through the Syndicate ranks. 40 soldiers, well-armed, well-positioned. One man standing alone on the ice. Your funeral, Commander. Weapons raised. Voss dropped to one knee and activated the device in his hand. The emergency beacon he'd salvaged from the bunker screamed into the void, a distress signal on all frequencies, broadcasting the comet's location to anyone listening. In the lawless frontier, distress signals attracted attention. Pirates, scavengers, mercenaries. Anyone looking for an easy score. Within minutes, ships would start arriving. The Syndicate would have to deal with competition. But Voss needed more than distraction. He needed a miracle. Cade, he said into his comms. Now would be good. Inside the bunker, Talia slotted the data crystal into an ancient console. The progenitor technology hummed to life, circuits that hadn't activated in millions of years suddenly flooding with power. I don't know what this will do, she warned. Do it anyway. Talia pressed the activation sequence. The comet shuddered. On the surface, the Syndicate soldiers stumbled as the ground beneath them shifted. Cracks appeared in the ice, radiating outward from the bunker entrance. A low rumble built to a roar as something deep inside the comet awoke. What did you do? The Syndicate commander screamed into his comms. Then the defenses activated. Energy beams erupted from hidden emplacements across the crater floor, precise and lethal. Syndicate soldiers fell where they stood, cut down by weapons they couldn't see. The portable barriers offered no protection. The turrets fired wildly at nothing. In 30 seconds, half the enemy force was dead or dying. Voss moved. He sprinted toward the perimeter, weapon up, cutting down 2 soldiers who stumbled into his path. The chaos provided cover, but it wouldn't last. Commander, Cade's voice crackled through the comms. The door is opening. Get to the bunker.
Now.
Voss ran. Behind him, the Syndicate survivors regrouped, their initial panic giving way to anger. Gunfire chased him across the ice, rounds kicking up frozen shrapnel around his feet. He dove through the bunker entrance as the doors began to seal. A bullet caught him in the leg, and he collapsed onto the floor of the airlock. The doors closed. The firing stopped. Voss. Zethkara stood over him, those strange eyes bright with anticipation. The door is open.
Can you feel it?
He could. A pulling sensation in his chest, like a hook embedded in his heart. Something inside the bunker was calling to him. Help me up. The Techno-Shaman pulled Voss to his feet, supporting his weight as they descended through the bunker's corridors. The damage from the mutiny was still evident, scorch marks on the walls, bodies that hadn't been removed. But deeper they went, past the familiar areas, into sections Voss had never explored. Finally, they reached it.
A door.
Not metal or stone, but something that looked like frozen light, shimmering with colors that had no names. It stood in the center of a chamber that shouldn't exist, carved from the comet's core in patterns that hurt to look at. The first threshold, Zethkara whispered. Beyond lies the inheritance of the progenitors. Knowledge.
Power.
The answers to questions your species has asked since it first crawled from the primordial seas. Voss limped forward. His blood was dripping onto the floor, and where it fell, the door pulsed with recognition. What do I do? Touch it. Let it read you. And then, Commander, choose. Voss reached out. His fingers brushed the surface, and the universe exploded into light. He stood in a space without boundaries. Stars wheeled around him, galaxies spiraling in their eternal dance. And before him, figures made of pure energy, their forms shifting and flowing like water. You carry the blood, a voice said, speaking directly into his mind. Diluted, but present. You may enter. Enter where? The inheritance. The knowledge of those who came before. 12 sites, 12 thresholds. Each contains a piece of what we left behind. Together, they form the key to everything. Key to what? To the next step. Your species stands at a crossroads. Destruction or transcendence. The progenitors chose transcendence. They left these gifts to help those who came after make the same choice. And if I refuse? Then the sites remain dormant. The knowledge stays hidden. And your species continues on its current path. The figures seem to smile. But you will not refuse. We can see into your heart. Adrien Voss. You have lost everything. Your ship, your fleet, your purpose. Here you can find something new. Something greater. Voss thought of the bunker, the survivors who'd looked to him for leadership. He thought of Cade, the enhanced soldier searching for meaning beyond his programming. He thought of Talia, the young woman who'd lost her mentor and found a new cause. He thought of the empire he'd served, the orders he'd followed, the wars he'd fought. None of it had prepared him for this. What do I need to do? Accept the inheritance. Become the keeper of the first threshold. And when the time comes, Find the others. Voss reached out. The light embraced him. He woke on the floor of the chamber, the door now dark and inert. But something had changed. He could feel the comet in a way he hadn't before, its structure, its systems, the dormant technologies waiting to be activated. Commander? Cade crouched beside him. You've been unconscious for 3 hours. The Syndicate survivors retreated. We've secured the bunker. Voss sat up slowly. His wounds had healed. The shoulder, the leg, even old scars he'd carried for years. The Techno-Shaman's medicine had been only partially responsible. Zethkara. The shaman appeared, robes singed, cybernetics flickering with residual energy. You did it. The threshold accepted you. What happens now? Now? Now you have a choice. Zethkara's voice carried a new note of respect. The cult has sought progenitor knowledge for centuries. We would welcome a keeper of the threshold as an ally, a partner. Voss stood. He felt different, stronger, clearer, as if a fog had lifted from his mind. The data crystal's information was now part of him, the coordinates to 11 other sites burned into his memory. The cult wants to use this knowledge for its own purposes. All organizations seek advantage. But the cult's purpose is transcendence, the evolution of the species. Is that not a worthy goal? It depends on the cost. Voss looked at the inert door. I've seen what fanaticism does. I've seen what happens when people believe the ends justify any means. And what do you believe, Commander? Voss considered the question. He'd spent his life following orders, serving an empire that no longer existed. Now he had the opportunity to chart his own course. I believe this knowledge needs to be protected, studied carefully, used wisely. He met Zethkara's eyes. I'll work with the cult, but not for it. I'm not a convert. I'm a keeper. And I'll decide how this inheritance gets used. Zethkara bowed, a gesture Voss hadn't expected. Acceptable. The ascendant path honors its keepers. Cade stepped forward. And the Syndicate? They'll be back with more forces. Let them come. Voss flexed his hand, feeling the new strength that flowed through him. This comet is mine now, and I intend to keep it. The days that followed were a blur of activity. Voss sent word through back channels to the surviving Imperial loyalists scattered across the sector. Some came, officers, soldiers, technicians who had nowhere else to go. They found purpose in the comet, a new mission that transcended old allegiances. Talia became the expedition scholar, poring over progenitor texts and deciphering the comet's ancient systems. Cade trained a new generation of defenders, his enhanced abilities now augmented by progenitor technology. And Zethkara served as liaison to the ascendant cult, negotiating a fragile alliance that benefited both parties. Voss stood in the operations center, the same room where he'd once contemplated slow asphyxiation, and watched the stars while past the viewport. The bunker was no longer a tomb. It was a foundation, the first of 12 thresholds. 11 more to find. Commander. Lieutenant Corin, loyal to the end, and now loyal to something greater, approached with a report. Long-range sensors detect a ship entering the system. Configuration unknown. Hostile. Unknown. But it's broadcasting an old Imperial identification code, one that hasn't been used since before the war. Voss felt a chill that had nothing to do with the comet's frozen walls. What code? Corin showed him the readout. Voss stared at the designation for a long moment.
It was a code he recognized.
A code that shouldn't exist. Prepare a greeting party, he said quietly, and get Talia to translate the full transmission. It seems the progenitors aren't the only ones trying to contact us. As Corin hurried away, Voss allowed himself a small smile. The universe was larger than he'd ever imagined, and his place in it was just beginning to take shape. The keeper of the first threshold had work to do.